Hello and welcome to the Xtra Edge, a sports analytics podcast powered by KINEXON Sports. Please like and subscribe on any and all of the platforms you prefer to listen to your podcast. I'm Dave Grzynski, and today we're talking with Dimitris Itoudis, who is one of the winningest coaches in the history of EuroLeague basketball. Not only has he won more than 70% of the games he's coached, he's also the youngest coach to ever reach 200 wins in the EuroLeague, but I'm just getting started. He's also won a couple of EuroLeague titles, took multiple teams to the Final Four, helped coach the Greek national team and Fenerbahce. He's the first Greek coach to win the EuroLeague with a foreign club, won 6 VTB United League championships, named EuroLeague Coach of the Year twice, and VTB Coach of the Year 4 times, was also named to the VTB Hall of Fame in 2022. And Coach, you get some of the credit for helping Giannis develop his games. The list of accolades for you is just never ending, and that's why I can't thank you enough for taking some time and joining us here on the Xtra Edge.
Thank you, Dave. Thank you for everybody who's going to listen to us. Thank you, KINEXON, for your contribution as well.
Well, Coach, I hear your path to coaching basketball is an unusual one. Your dad was a really good soccer player, and you started out playing soccer, but you left your junior soccer team because your hair was too long and was not in line with the coach's rules. So you decided to switch to basketball at a young age, and as they say, the rest is history. Can you confirm or deny that story?
Well, I can only confirm because, that was one of my first setbacks in the sports career, if I may put it that way. So I decided, like subconsciously probably, not consciously, but I decided to fall forward, not to fall back. And, it can be the length of the hair, the why you're good enough or you're not good enough, but it cannot be the length of the hair. I was always looking at the why we do this drill, why we do that kind of combination, why and why. So I was just looking for the why. If you give me the why, then I can go through the walls. So it's also a karma. Pretty much the coach, which unfortunately is Slade coach of the soccer, that he pretty much pushed me out of the team in his way. He never said to me, that's the door, go away. But I decided to move to basketball, and he made a pretty good thing to me back then. So I am who I am right now, thanks to, basketball and all the teachers I had and all the associates and players that I work with. I'm blessed. And at the same time, so, I can express my gratitude into what the sports had gave me so far.
Well, Coach, you have always taken this. You're taking this approach of looking at things differently, and then and turning it into a huge benefit. And this is why I was chomping at the bit to get you on this podcast, because here we talk about data and collecting data, sports analytics, and using the data to gain insights and take action. And I know that sometimes it's hard for people to understand all of it and how to use it and things like that. And so that's why I'm really interested to get your thoughts on this topic. So let's start with the data first. I've heard you say you trust the data, even during your coaching career. And I'm just wondering when your relationship with data started. When were you first exposed to data and analytics?
Well, allow me to say that I'm long enough around. So as I said, and we used to say that if you're long enough hanging around the barbershop, sooner or later you're going to get your haircut. So I took my haircut. Related to the first topic in regards of the length of the hair. So I took the hair there. You see, now I don't have a long hair, so it's really short there. So he was right. He was looking ahead, that coach. And, pretty much I can say that it was too much of a job to do back then in late 90s. And I was using the VHS, and I had to produce the data with a lot of hours of writing statistics, subtracting, dividing, adding this, that, so I can get a paper of what is going on. So in the Final Four of 2000, when I was as the associate of head coach Željko Bradović in Panathinaikos, and we won the title in Thessaloniki, I had to scout 13 games of Maccabi to I could have done it with 3, but I wanted to get deeper and deeper. Why I'm mentioning the 13? Because back then, to record in Europe at least, and I'm emphasizing Europe, I had to use 2 different VHS. But imagine, and for those that they are into and they're my age, they will understand completely that in order to make a video recording for presentation, I had to go and take one tape with a counter what this pick and roll happened in 1 hour, 13 minutes, and 23 seconds. So go fast forward. Go to that certain counter, record this clip, rewind the tape back so you're getting 0. Now put the other tape where you see that pick and roll that matches. And again, what is this? 56. So why I'm saying that is a lot of hours, a lot of not sleeping nights, and and I was trying to see with my American friends what they're doing there. Back then, already in the United States, the computer, the laptop was a part of scouting and saving hours and hours of sleeping, resting your mind, and obviously work on the court. So in 2000, we start working with another platform, which to the day is a very good platform to analyze games and get game statistics. So Synergy was one of the back then in 2000 that we worked with, and many other companies, and that started saving my time and giving me more data, which now I used it to justify more convenient what my idea was, why we have to do this, because it's also the numbers are familiar with. And just for the history, that was the, let's say, I can place it when it was this revolution happening with me. So now I can, let's say, put all the game into a Dazzle back then that we were working, and then through the Pinnacle or Dazzle that we used to doing it with computer, I can use some more fancy things, present to the players. It was an interesting revolution here in Europe that now we use also the computer. So I can pretty much put it over there late 90s and beginning of 2000.
So let's move forward to when you're introduced to the IMU system. That's because from what I understand, that's what you're used to using, right? And I'm just curious, like, what are your thoughts now comparing it to the old days? What are your thoughts on when you're using an IMU system now to collect data and then use that data?
Well, now we are going towards a direction where it's a bombing of data. It's allow me to say it is a bomb. Now, when you're able to work with your associates and let's say address the KINEXON to the statistician guy, listen, we cannot go with this bunch of numbers to players, but hit me, allow me to use that word, like, inform me with all this data. Then we're going to decide what we're going to give one paper that has those hits, which are, let's say, highlighted, and we're going to go with the main things, what we want to do. Or we don't go with the players. We just say to them, and they trust because we make so much of an analysis. So we're going to force this certain player to the left because his percentage to the left side is reduced comparing to the right. So, etc. So right now we are having a lot of bombing of a lot of data, but data is a very helpful tool into saving time, trusting the machine and the guy who uses it, the statistician, the numbers, and then use it in a proper way, the way that will not create any kind of a trouble to the player with so much information, but in the way that helps to build some kind of a strategy.
So as far as data collection, I mean, it's very useful in practice, but do you also see a use for it in games? Do you think teams should be using put the wearables on during a game so they can compare data with the games to practices?
Definitely. There is what I used to do back in 2000 when I was giving tasks to my associates, to assistant coaches, is that, you're going to keep the effectiveness from the fast rebound. You're going to keep the fast breaks, the deflections will have what the fast rebound was producing, this and that box outs. And this during the timeout when you're going to be able, hey guys, great job. The team that just was scoring and producing, 10 points from offensive rebound, they're already in zero. So we're doing a great job on the box out. Or guys, that's very bad. This team, generates a lot from offensive boards. They already have 6 and score 8 points. And we got 3 fouls out of that. So if you can hit the player with a certain information during the timeout, during the first quarter, during the halftime, and this is where another revolution have happened to me. It was when I realized we can have a live scouting and scouting report with the image in the locker room. Because now, and this is a fight, allow me to open a parenthesis, the idea was there. I also asked the EuroLeague why we don't use this, what other sports are using, and also NBA, that the assistant coaches are with the iPad, the substitution happens, the assistant coach goes and say, hey, listen, you did that great. Because we need to say also, bravo. It's not the analysis and the data doesn't go only to blame somebody or to start confronting or to start accusing him of something. It's also to say, bro, you did a great job. That's the right ankle. You turn the ankle good. You had a good pass. You go there. So why we don't use the iPad during the game? Many coaches are using the iPad just to keep stats, but they cannot give us the footage. So this is something that we as a union of head coaches board, which are proudly president, we need to change and, just to be allowed to show also the footage. When we had to play a friendly game against San Antonio and Houston, back then it was the tour in United States with Panathinaikos. We played two friendly games, one with Houston Rockets and one with San Antonio. And with Pops, we were a little bit more close, and his relation with late Dusan Ivkovic and his relation with Željko and my relation. So we had a good, an RC Buford, and they helped us a lot and everything. So the game is over. Obviously, we lost the game. Doesn't matter. That's not important. From San Antonio, and Tomašević comes to me and says, on the halftime, Pops was very aggressive to the Argentinian big guy. I forgot his name. And I said, what do you mean he was very aggressive? He says he shows him a video where I kill him on the roll, the short roll, and the kick out. So, what do you mean? And then I start digging, and I got the info that they have a guy, actually 2 guys, that they're doing the job behind the scenes. They cut the clips, and then in the halftime, whatever the coach says can justify it with a picture too, because guess what? Picture never lies. So I brought that to Panathinaikos in 2005, and from that day, we have also a coach. I have, at least whenever the teams can support that, I have always had a coach that is behind the scene. He's cutting things, and we have also footage to support the criticism or the applaud for a great job we do on a halftime. So yeah, it's very important.
Well, I'm surprised that more teams in Europe have not adopted this practice of using data as a tool to complement their coaching style, just from the standpoint of the grind of the season over there? Because not only are you have league games to deal with, but the guys playing with their national teams and things like that, and workloads. And do you find that having the data, and you kind of touched on it there a little bit when you're looking at the iPads and you made the substitution, at the right time, does it help to manage player workloads?
Definitely. Now we're going to more specific areas where it has to be, where we're talking about prevention from injuries, where we're talking about loading, physical loading, obviously sometimes mentally loading. We cannot right now have the right data, although the programs allows to the coaches, to the strength condition, to the head coach, which let's be honest, in Europe, the head coach has the leading part of what he wants to add in his coaching staff. Obviously, the strength condition coach is very important, and he has to be, as it is now in the United States. Pretty much, the strength condition coaches decide who's practicing, who is playing, how much minutes they're playing, this and that. And I had the experience with Giannis and his group when they came with Milwaukee, because Giannis is an asset for Milwaukee. So I can agree more with them how they want to protect their asset. But at the same time, the national team coach, which I want to use the player. But when they say to me, this certain amount of minutes because the loading in his knee, blah, blah, blah. So I can understand that I can fully support that because it's based on data and the knowledge they have from a certain player. But we cannot go that much sensitive and replace the coaching talent, the strength condition talent. The players wish to the end of the day to give a little bit more to his team, because when I was not a big player, that's why I stopped, and I used to be a coach. That was my karma. But I remember myself twist my ankle, and my ankle was like this, and the coach says, "Wow, I'm gonna play." So what do you mean? Let me tighten it again. And I tightened it and I came back. After that, I was 2 weeks with the crunches, but I wanted to play the game. Now, with data, and when we can evaluate the loading and say, okay, this player, better to rest him a little bit because it shows a little bit red line into the hamstring, or based on the injury report and the fact that he's going through psychological difficulties because he's going through a difficult situation in his house with his friend, or because he's not playing well under the expectations. He's underachiever right now, so he's going through difficulties. Right, let's help him. Like we're helping him if we overuse him. So those are the things that now asking from my associates to come and challenge me and to come and inform me and to help me on how we can use certain players. Obviously, we cannot use the like, okay, now rest him totally, keep him out for 1 month, or let's find the right solution. The right solution is more acceptable from the head coaches because it's based on data. It's not based just on what your gut said, which are important. Allow me to say that we cannot be we're not going to coach now the teams with robots and just data. We're going to coach again with a way that you see it, witness it, experience it, and you feel it. But always take the help in a timeout when hey, this guy is 55%. Make a foul. Or this guy this week was shooting amazing. He's at his best. So draw a play for him. It's all to be justified.
Well, one of the things I've heard you talk about is trusting the orchestra. That time when the conductor takes the baton and puts it down and just lets the orchestra play. I know music is a big part of your life. I know you mentioned, I've heard you talk about your dad playing the bouzouki, and it's near and dear to my heart. I have a son who's a music theater major. He's about to graduate and he's going to go on. He wants to be a performer. Music's a big part of his life. Music is a big part of our life. I totally agree with you. I'm a huge Barry Manilow fan. I'm a fan of Low. Like I've loved music. From the time my dad played in a polka band, he played the drums. So unfortunately, he's no longer with us, or I'd say we should form a family band. But I love that phrase, trusting the orchestra, especially when you apply it to data, because I think there are so many coaches who think that, you're going to have your assistant coaches or your strength and conditioning coach or your performance coach coming to you and telling you what to do. And that's not necessarily the case. You've kind of touched on that. So did you have these moments with data when someone comes to you and tells you what the data is telling you, and then you just have to say, okay, I have to trust the orchestra here and do what the data is telling me? Do you still have those moments?
And I had the moments where what I said, listen, let me dose the practice for this certain player. And then if something happens, I take it on me. So there are some moments that with the experience, is not because I'm acknowledging the fact that the assistant coach or the strength conditioning coach comes and says, hey, he's on the bread. But there are many other cases that I say, okay, if my strength conditioning doctor, they're like this, and the physio, I don't touch the player. I touch the player, and I told them, and I coach them to bring me the players when they're at 100%. I don't want heroes. I don't want some kind of certain of heroism. I want the player to be 100% mentally and physically on the court. So prepare him. And now we have to understand also the coaches. And I went through this last season of mine to huge difficulties where I was missing at the same time 6 players. And, when you're missing one, it's already a problem. When you're missing 2, it becomes a point.
A bigger problem.
when you're missing 3, it's already a case. I don't want to mention about the 4th.
Yeah, you don't want to go there.
So we understand that also the coaches are under the radar and they're with a gun over there. And, this we have 8 coaches getting fired. And, like sometimes you're also questioning, what should I trust? And it's not the data. The problem is not the data. It's also the way you're using certain things. It's also sometimes, you can't predict when a player walks to the parking, as I had this injury, and the next morning comes with his cuff cut, and he had to undergo a surgery, or the player gets an elbow and all his jaw is out. None of the data can predict. Okay, let's understand. But if we reduce the risks we have had in the past with data, then really we can marriage that, and we have a synergy of data, experience, feeling, because you witness it, and that's a great synergy. That's the music, as you said. So you have all this composed, all this together, and it gives you something.
Is that what I'm trying to pinpoint? Because you've mentioned several advantages, whether it's saving time or helping to manage the workloads, or all of these different aspects. I mean, is there one advantage you think data has given you? And this is why you're such a good person to talk to about this, because you've done it before data and now you're doing it with data. But in all the time you've been using data, what do you think is the biggest advantage? And if it's time saving, then that's fine. But or is there one, or is it more than one?
No, there's more than one for sure. There is no doubt that saving time means that when you're saving time and you're talking to a workaholic, it's not about me having less of work. No, it's, rest is also a part of work, because when you rest your mind and your body, then you go with more motivation, bigger motivation. You have hours of sleeping. When I was younger, obviously, I would not sleep until 5 o'clock in the morning, and then 5 o'clock in the morning, I'm in the practice with 4 hours of sleep, 3 hours of sleep, and I'm good to go. This constantly, it hurts your health for sure, and it hurts your efficiency it hurts your self-efficacy, first of all, and it hurts the efficacy of you being a coach or assistant coach or any kind of personnel. So it's more than one of the areas that data can help, but we cannot replace data with the human experience and talent. So data now is over here to justify us, to give us more certain areas, and to answer to your question, certain, yes, it was the data that says to me who to foul, how to do it, I force him over there. Is that player is he drops down if I use him more in the third quarter and I load him there. So I rather not having on the third, but on the fourth quarter is going to give us everything. So this is also data, and also is the same time as experience. If the data comes over here purely just data, and I just blindly I accept all, then I don't have this, what I'm just saying, human talent and the human experience. So I think that the marriage and the synergy, as I said, is the best way. So, and yes, I do remember in different areas where I rest a player, where I use certain strategy defensively or offensively to make my to finalize my plan on how we're going to go on a certain game.
Of all the insights you've gained over the years, using data, do you still think back to one particular moment, or do you still have like those aha moments where you get the data, coaches come to you, give you the information, and then you make that part of the strategy or the game plan, and then it works. And you go, man, if it wasn't for the data, we may not have been able to pull that off. Have you ever had any of those kind of moments?
Well, I always, even though we try now, I did had those moments that, the numbers are talking and they're saying the truth. There is also a certain way to kind of lie to the players, the data, many times. At the end of the day, we have human bodies, certain talent play on the court. We need to use the data the right way, as also the artificial intelligence, because at the end of the story, I'm not gonna coach out there and say, okay, let me ask on my mobile now, hey, how should I do that substitution? And the artist said, no, you should not do this substitution because this guy, or yes, I gotta do it. Then we're gonna go to play the robot scene. Like, allow me. That's how it comes from my heart. I have huge respect to the mathematicians, to the statisticians, to the data guys. I want them with me. They're big part of my coaching job. They change my life towards to better. We have areas to develop certain collaboration in between those two, the synergy, as I call it, or the marriage. And yes, data are important. Yes, I need them. I recommend them to each and everyone to be a little bit more open mind. Listen more than talking. Listen, trying it, adopting, and being a flexible and in a certain way, try to put it in your system and see results. So that's my conclusion after so many years.
Yeah, and I think you got to trust your gut. You can eliminate the gut. And what I heard you say that you actually accuse yourself of over practicing earlier in your career. I mean, do you think the data has helped you find that sweet spot when it comes to practice times?
Definitely. If I would have had this kind of support based on numbers and also data that shows me and proves me that over practicing is bad, back then we were, and I was the one, I have to accuse myself, yes, because we were killing the players. And in A2 division, working with Philippos Thessaloniki, because also the court was one, and we had to share the practice times with PAOK, which was EuroLeague or dimension team, Aris, another European giant back then. And then we were Philippos. And then we had also the volleyball of women. So, we were used to take always the shitty hours. I'm sorry for my language.
It's fine.
Which means we worked at 8 o'clock in the morning, and then 3 o'clock it was my afternoon practice. And if I say now to somebody, I used to practice twice my players at 8 o'clock in the morning, then at 3. That's over practicing. I was really bad. Is that the fact why many of those players, I'm proud. 2 of them, then they play to the elite league. They make their career. They're happy and everything. So, but we were evolving. We were doing mistakes. We were doing differently. Maybe it's not mistakes. Maybe that was the way that back then coaches were working. Like when you don't practice a lot, then you don't get the respect from the players. But back then we had 1 game in a week, and maybe no travel because you have to go, 1 kilometer away and play the opponent. Or you sit in the bus and you go and play the opponent 30 minutes distance. Now it's a different loading. Now it's a different circumstances. Now we have so many games, adding the national team games, the player is exhausted. Now we are looking how we will rest the players, how the player will disconnect from basketball or whatever basketball means, and try to love it again, try to need it again back in if he is out of the basketball, not to lift his body. I'm not talking to lift his body completely off in the summer, but at least to unload a little bit and to disconnect. This how data can give you. So back then, as I said, if I would have that, probably I would have used it in a different way.
Yeah, because there's the overloading, but there's also the underloading too. If you got a light week or you got a guy who's not getting minutes or whatever, but you still want to keep them, maintain that same level. And I've heard you talk about, and I'm a big control what you can control guy, and I've heard you mention that. And you say, as a coach, you can there's things you can control, right? If you want to run a pick and roll, you want to play zone instead of man, you want to you can control those things. And when we talk about a lot of times on this podcast, data providing insights, and then some of the actions coaches take is maybe with strategies and tactics. And I've heard you talk. It's all kind of blended in, But do you feel that way too, where this now becomes the data becomes part of your decisions when you're controlling what you can control? You mentioned it, like forcing a guy to go left, or let's foul this guy because it all plays a role, huh? That's what it sounds like to me.
I feel naked if I don't have data. Allow me to say that. I feel naked if I go out there without having data. When I sit to scout a game, I will scout the game. And without data, I'm going to be able to go out there and coach. But I feel naked if I don't have also certain numbers. And okay, it might come to a certain point that I have to take decisions. So I will be less effective, or I will lie to my boss if I don't use the data, which now I have. So I feel it, I need to have data as well with me. That's why I give so much of a job to my assistant coaches. I try to educate it why we need to use this in this certain way, the data during the game, during the practice, and during in everything what we do in our.
Yeah, and again, it goes back to like we were talking about the European coaches. You guys have to balance so much more than what happens here in the States, because the guys play in college, they go from college to the pros. They're one team, and the only other time it comes around is like this time, Olympic time, right? But that it's not even a part of the season. It's after this. It's in it's during the off season, and it's so easy. For these guys to fit in. But what I think is interesting that you talk about is the differences, and this is why I love the Olympics, because we saw when Greece took down Team USA, LeBron and everybody. because it is a different game, and there is a different style to it, and I really love to see that. I love to see our guys who are running gun up and down, chucking threes all day, going there, and all of a sudden now, you have to play, you have to get back to the fundamentals, and so that's what's always fun to watch for me. That's why I like about the differences. But I can just imagine the pressure that puts on you to try and juggle all that.
A lot of pressure, and for the people that they are quite long enough into this sport and they love the sport, they're looking what is the next day, what is the next step, because we all have to be grateful to James that he came up with this brilliant idea, and this game that we all love now, it's also our profession, and we are having benefit out of that. If we could be the Naismith's taxation, I think that each and every one of us had to pay these taxes. So, but we can evolve. We can develop so many other things, so many other areas to be evolved.
Well, if it wasn't for James Naismith and his peach basket, and you and your long hair, we wouldn't have you. And Coach, I can't thank you enough for taking some time and sharing your insights today on the Xtra Edge.
Thank you so much, David. Thank you, KINEXON. Let's keep rolling, all right?
I agree. Hey, if you know a great coach out there who's doing great things, winning games and doing it with sports data, we'd love to hear about them. We may even ask them to be a guest on the podcast. You can find us on Twitter and Instagram at KINEXON Sports, or look for us on LinkedIn at KINEXON Sports and Media. Remember, we want you to innovate the game by collecting the data, getting those insights, and turning those insights into action. We will see you next time.